Hey, it's Monday, December 16th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show. And I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. As always, take a couple seconds here at the beginning. Let's all be better citizens, okay? That means we have to actually ferret out. We have to seek the truth being the facts being the who, the what, the where, and the when. And anything beyond that, all the prognostication, forecast, bias, opinion, which occupies a tremendous amount of the news cycle on most information channels that you'll see, especially if they're a 24-hour channel on television or on the internet. That's a tremendous source. Those are tremendous sources of bias. And I will gleefully depend upon your opinion based on the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the when. So when you're watching something, you're seeing something, reading an article, who, what, where, when, and then you decide what it means, not whatever this opinion piece is. A lot of times I'll go through some different websites, right-leaning, centrist, or left-leaning, and compare the way that they're covering these different stories. And I was going to do that today, except for I ran across a story that's in CNET, CNET.com. And they were talking about the rapid advancement of Russian military weapons. And this caught my eye. Because I've spoken in the past, and I'll speak to it now. So the Russians, and especially Mr. Putin, he's an autocrat. Okay, he is focused on acquiring, being successful, and under today's definition of success, he's focused on acquiring wealth, influence, and power, and that's how he defines success. And he's driven to do that. Okay. And he's using the machinery of entire nation, the Russian nation, to help him achieve those goals. And to some extent, the Russian people are happy to follow him there. Now, so there's a couple ways that he's doing this. So one is this cyber war, if you will. So very effective. He's being very effective so far. The Russians are being very effective in distributing information through the social media, especially here in the United States, which is, they look at, as Mr. Putin looks at the United States and sees us as a huge competitor for him in being in that leadership role, the one who has the most wealth, influence, and power. He looks at us and says, that's my target. I need to bring them down, and I need to ratchet myself up. And so they've done an incredible job posting fake, biased propaganda. That's the best word for it. It's propaganda. So it's there on these various media streams, and it's intended to completely influence you, and and to the degree all of us, if we allow them to do it. So it's called, I think the special on Netflix is still there. It's called The Great Hack. Strongly recommend you watch that. So that's one path that he's taking. He's working hard to ratchet up the power and influence of Russia. And the other side of it is he's working on some new military stuff. Okay, so Russia went through kind of a low point some years ago, and a lot of it was due to sanctions from us and various other countries around the world for some of their activities. So their civil rights kinds of abuse, and also some of their militaristic actions against states like Ukraine, which is not part of Russia anymore, but they want to bring it back into the fold. They want to reconstitute the old Soviet Union and then some, if they could. And so militarily here, so they've had and Fortunately, this administration hasn't been very tough on the Russians, and so step by step, they're having more economic success, and that in turn is allowing Mr. Putin to generate more and better weapons of war. So I just wanted to show, so in this CNET article, they talk about some of these new weapons that the Russians are developing, and they're trying to roll it out in numbers, okay? And the real question is, well, one, so there's a couple things here. One is they have the technology, they're really advancing their technology, and then the question is, will they have the economic wherewithal to build, not just a few or a dozen of these different military weapons I'm going to show you, but hundreds or even thousands of them in the case of this first weapon, which is a tank. So this is the T14, and it is designed to be the most powerful, longest range, most high-tech battle tank on the planet. And one of the main things that it has is the turret is actually a fully automated turret. And it can, according to another place in this article, it can shoot a shell every 5 or 6 seconds. Bam, bam, bam. Now, that's fast, folks, for a tank. That's incredibly fast, and I think the shells have a very long range and stuff like that. And then the other part of it, you can see these odd shapes and stuff. It has a tremendous amount of new armament and stuff to protect the tank and the crew inside. So frightening, really, the capability that this new battle tank has. And then they're also working on this, which is the T50, and it's a new fighter jet, supersonic and super maneuverable. The interesting thing about this particular jet is they have these new ultra high power engines, jet engines that are in these things. And the interesting thing is that the output of the engines can be rotated or vectored 360 degrees. So what they're doing when they're flying these things, so normally the plane's flying, the engine is kind of fixed as far as the thrust, and you have to use the wings and different parts, flaps and things to the rudder to cause steering of the plane. Well, these things not only have those features, but they also the engine itself is able to rotate and vector the output of the engine to help in turns. So they're making them super maneuverable, and in fact 360 degree maneuverability, able to vector that output on the back of the planes. Scary. Being a fighter pilot, and also they have the gearing and stuff, the support inside for the pilots is capable of supporting them in 9G maneuvers. So 9 times the force of gravity, the pilots are able to sustain that with the capabilities of the uniforms and so on, and equipment in this machine. That's incredible. I mean, normally that would cause blackouts and all kinds of problems for the pilots. Frightening. Let's go to the next one. So now we have these attack helicopters. Okay, and the attack helicopters, new technologies on older versions of these attack helicopters, tremendous upgrades. And in fact, for example, this one has new rotors and new motors that will allow an attack helicopter to fly 370 miles per hour. Now, That's unbelievably fast for a helicopter. Unbelievably fast. 370 miles per hour. My God, that's, so I don't know, it's unfathomable, really. If you know anything about helicopters, and their normal top speeds are 100 miles an hour, or 150 miles an hour, or 200 miles an hour. 370 miles per hour. Wow. And then getting into, so I was on ballistic missile submarines in my past. So this nuclear threat, the ballistic missiles, this is an ongoing thing that I'm very concerned about, obviously, and somewhat knowledgeable about. And here, Russia is updating. They're getting rid of some number of their old, aging, unworking, really, Cold War era thermonuclear weapons, and replacing them with a brand new inventory of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. And so here, the Russians have a tendency to put them on mobile carriers and disperse these mobile carriers as a deterrent against trying to knock them out. So, and then the silent service, so the submarine force. So here they have brand new ballistic missile submarines, which are markedly better. When I was in the Navy back in the mid to late 80s, the Russian submarines, back then the Soviet submarines, they were at a huge disadvantage compared to American submarines at the time. So our submarines were silent, and our sonar arrays were incredibly sensitive and agile and capable. And so back in the day, we had no trouble, hearing Soviet submarines, tracking Soviet submarines, understanding where they were. If we had gotten into a hot war with the Soviet Union, their submarines would have been almost annihilated, like within days, because there was such a huge difference in the capabilities and technologies. But now the Russians are vastly upgrading their submarines, and these ballistic missile submarines are yet another view of that, of how much they're upgrading and attempting to upgrade their military. And again, the accumulation of wealth, influence, and power. So just to show you this picture one more time. So this is one of their newest ballistic missile submarines. I think I read in a different part of this article that it's capable of carrying 16 missiles, and each one of those having 10 independent warheads that can be targeted on different locations, and each one of those warheads being 150 or 200 kilotons, which is roughly the size, I think it's roughly the size of the weapons that hit Nagasaki and Hiroshima back in World War II. So really, really impressive capability. And here we are. I don't know, folks. Our country, we cannot stand alone in this world, and we have to do so much better coordinating with other countries around the world. All of us should not be militarizing. We all need to be de-escalating this military stuff. Every time there's a big military buildup, there's a corresponding war. Every time. And right now, we're building a bunch of military spending is up under the Trump administration. I can't remember what, but our last military budget was unbelievable. It's like $800 billion or something annually. It's unbelievable. You know, the Russians are doing their dead level best to catch up or surpass us. We have to be so much better than what we are. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, just thought I would talk about Russia and the cyber kind of warfare that they're working against us, and also the threat of future, you know, more conventional military warfare. All right. So for Monday, December 16th, 2019, this is Michael James Ott, the Pro and Con Show. Until next show, bye for now.